Welcome again to our ongoing discussion. This is number 14 in the series, if you happen to be keeping track. Ellen Hart is here, keeper of the Jane Lawless series. On my left, Kent Kruger is here, keeper of the Cork O'Connor series. They're here as usual. A little later, we're going to interview Chicago author Michael Dimmock, who writes a really interesting PI series and some other interesting books as well. But first, let's talk about research. Do we do it? Why do we do it? Where do we go for help?
You're looking at me?
I'm looking at you. I'm talking to you, fella.
I don't know about you guys, but when I took writing classes in high school and in college, and even a few after that, the first dictum they tried to pound into my head was, of course, write what you know. Mm-hmm. Write what you know. Well, the thing is that most of us, when we sit down to write mysteries, are suddenly aware that there's so much we don't know. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're going to write a mystery, you may end up having to know about ballistics or forensic investigation, or what do coroners do, or weapons, or the minds of serial killers, you know. Right. Things that, at least when I was growing up, wasn't dinner table conversation in my house. So it becomes clear fairly quickly that you're going to have to do some research. And I think all good mystery authors probably do a lot of research. And I think that you can usually tell when an author hasn't done his or her research. Mm-hmm. So the answer, if you're asking me, is yes, we do a lot of research.
What kind of research?
Well, you know, I'm going to be a little sacrilegious here. I got to tell you, these days, the first place I go for research is the internet.
Yeah, I do too.
And what the internet does is tell me, broadly speaking, what's out there. And from what I find on the internet, then I begin to focus in on what are the things that I really need to know, and what are the best, the most reliable sources for actually getting to that information. So very often I'll go from there to the library because I know more specifically what I need to be looking for. I have some names, I have some publications to go with. And then if you're going to drill down even deeper, and we all do this, then you go out and you talk to the people who really know this stuff, the cops or the detectives or the coroners.
What's the difference between the kind of information you get at the library or on the internet, setting aside the question of accuracy for the moment, and the kind of information that you get, say, from interviewing a cop or a detective or a FBI guy?
Well, it would be sort of the difference of watching a laundry commercial or talking to your mom about what was it like to do laundry when I was a kid.
It's called concrete detail. It's called, you know, specifics.
Lingo.
Lingo. It's the kind of thing that you would never pick up if you were reading a book on criminalistics, but if you went and you talked to a cop, you'd pick up an awful lot of things that, you know, would never be covered.
But you get it, that's true, but you get it in a different format. Lingo comes closest. You get jargon, right? You get street talk. You get everyday language, true?
And you get attitudes.
Bingo.
And that's what you can't find, I think, in books on, say, weapons, or, you know, you take a class from somebody, you're going to get a lot of attitude about what these people think about, you know, the way weapons are treated in this country, and all the hoops that we make people jump through, and then about their own weapons. And
You're acting again.
But that's because I've been to these classes, and these people are crazed. You know, they think there are way too many hoops they have to jump through to get a gun. You also, if you talk to a police officer, not only do you get attitudes and the correct jargon or the way that they're looking at something, you actually. You may read something about procedure, but on the street it may be very different, the way those things are handled. And you know, I don't think there's anything more important than going directly to the person who does the job you're curious about or you're going to write about, and talking to them.
And very often they'll bring in an element that you hadn't even imagined.
Exactly.
Even thinking of in your wildest imaginations.
But isn't that hard to do? I mean, why would anybody? I mean, you know, you're some yutz off the street, and you come and say, "Hi, I want to talk to you about your everyday activity." Why would they do that?
Oh, people love to talk about something that they're interested in.
Do you know, for me, that was the biggest problem I had to overcome, was exactly that question. I'm a Yutz. Why do you want to talk to me? And what I discovered was exactly what Ellen is talking about here. They love to talk about what they do. At least that's been my experience.
Oh, absolutely.
Generally speaking, that's been my experience.
Well, it depends on your approach. One of the first people that I asked about, I wanted to know if about a poison, particularly a sleeping poison. And I called a doctor just out of the blue, and I said, I'm a writer, and, you know, they said, well, all right, you know, I'll talk to you. And I said, essentially said, okay, if I did this, would this kill someone? Or, you know, and I could just feel them sort of
Even through the telephone.
even through the telephone, that they didn't like it. And you've had
well, again, it's a problem with approach.
Yes.
I know what you're talking about, and I made the approach incorrectly. But what I've discovered is that people give you a wealth of information,
Yes.
more than you even asked for.
Right.
I needed, in one of my books, I needed to know how a guy might die in a hospital emergency room. How could he be killed there, and have it look like it's not a murder.
a murder.
And so
Well,
I went to the emergency
injected with a
room.
bubble.
Well, I went to the emergency room, and I was talking with a nurse I knew there, and the doctor who happened to be in charge of the emergency room came in and asked what I was doing there, and boy, was he a wealth of information.
Yeah, is that
Gave me
right?
all kinds of ways. I could kill people.
Yeah. And the thing is, though, that may lead you in a different direction in terms of your own writing,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, that's a gift, I think.
I want to correct something that just in case that offhand comment I made about injecting a bubble and going to that, you know that doesn't work.
Okay.
And for one thing,
Viewers, that doesn't work.
yeah, it doesn't. Needles, the hypodermics that they use in the medical profession today are so small that to put a bubble in that would do any damage to anybody and not be noticed particularly is impossible. So don't try this at home.
Right.
When I was researching the Cork O'Connor series, I knew Cork was going to have a law enforcement background, and I talked to a retired county sheriff from rural Minnesota, and that guy gave me so much insight on the personal aspect of being a sheriff and the effect that had on his family, his friendships, his relationship with the town. It was just invaluable.
The other side, though, is that you do all this research. I had a book once where I did research on Hollywood in the 20s, 30s, 40s until the studio system broke up. And I never wanted to stop researching because that, to me, was just
The
fascinating.
Merchant of Venus.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah.
But you know what you can't do is you can't take all the research that you've done and put it in the book. That
You can't take all the information that you have and put it on the program.
Right.
now.
Okay, all
So
right.
we have to move along.
What a nice segue
That
there,
was
Carl.
excellent,
You
Carl.
like that? See, can't write these things down. They
Yeah.
just come up somehow in your head. Well, we'll talk some more about research and some things that we've mentioned a little later in the show. Next up, Michael Dimick, Chicago author. Back in a minute. Mystery author Michael Dimick is here with us. I'm pleased to have her as a guest whose writing I have long admired. Let me introduce Ms. Dimick here, who served as the president and secretary of the Midwest chapter of Mystery Writers of America. She's been the newsletter editor for the Chicagoland chapter of Sisters in Crime. She, of course, lives in Chicago. And if you go to her website, you won't find very much about her.